As the sun dipped below the horizon, Margaret sat in the quiet of her home, surrounded by memories of a life once full of laughter and love. Now, the house felt too big, too silent, a constant reminder of how time had slipped away. But in the stillness of her solitude, something unexpected stirred. It wasn't loneliness she felt, but the awakening of a hidden strength, one that had been quietly building over the years. In the quiet of old age, Margaret was about to discover that even in the absence of others, there was still a life waiting to be lived, one filled with new possibilities, new connections, and a new kind of joy. Welcome to our channel. We're so glad you're here. If you enjoyed this content, please don't forget to like, share, and comment below. We love hearing from you. But most importantly, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on our latest videos. The evening light stretched lazily across the horizon, casting a golden glow over the small town where Margaret lived. At 79, Margaret was often described by those who knew her as a woman who had lived a full and vibrant life. Yet, as she sat by her window, looking out at the soft sway of the trees, there was a quiet sadness in her heart. The house, once filled with the sounds of children's laughter, was now eerily still. Her children, now grown and with families of their own, had all moved far away. Her beloved friends, those who had been by her side through the highs and lows, had passed on. Now it was just Margaret and her thoughts, drifting in the silence of the room. At times, it felt like the weight of her solitude was too much to bear. The days seemed endless, each one blending into the other. Margaret often wondered if her best years were behind her. She had been told that old age was meant to be peaceful, a time to slow down, reflect, and enjoy the fruits of her labor. But in truth, it was far more complex than that. It was filled with moments of reflection, yes, but also moments of deep loneliness that felt like an ever-present shadow. But Margaret, with her wisdom that came only through experience, knew something that many didn't. She understood that loneliness wasn't something to be feared or avoided. It was an inevitable part of life, but it didn't define it. Loneliness, in its own way, could be a companion, a teacher. If you learn to listen, it could show you things about yourself that you never knew existed. Margaret had lived long enough to understand this truth. In fact, it was this understanding that had allowed her to flourish in ways that others could not see. Aging, despite what many might think, wasn't something Margaret feared. She didn't view it as a slow descent into decline, but as an opportunity to discover deeper layers of who she was. The passage of time had given her the gift of perspective. She had seen her children grow into adults, facing their own challenges, triumphs, and hardships. She had witnessed the transformation of the world around her, how society, technology, and even the very nature of human connection had evolved. But through it all, Margaret had remained rooted in her understanding of what truly mattered. She had spent years learning about the importance of family, friends, love, and personal growth. The early years of her life had been filled with uncertainty, but she had learned to embrace change with an open heart. The joys of youth were fleeting, but as the years passed, Margaret found that the wisdom that came with age was far more valuable than the fleeting pleasures of youth. In the quiet moments of solitude, Margaret began to reflect on her life's journey. She thought about the choices she had made, the people she had loved, the mistakes she had learned from, and the successes that had filled her heart with pride. She knew that every wrinkle, every gray hair, and every line on her face was a testament to a life fully lived. They were the markers of a woman who had seen the world, loved deeply, and experienced the full range of human emotion. And in that moment, Margaret understood that her age was not a sign of weakness, but a badge of honor. Yet there were still times when the silence felt overwhelming. When she walked through her home, the emptiness echoed around her. She knew that the world outside was busy, that people were living their lives and moving forward, but sometimes it felt like she was left behind. The younger generation had their futures ahead of them, but Margaret's future seemed so much smaller, so much more confined to the present. And yet she refused to succumb to this feeling. She knew that she had more to give, more to offer, and more life to live. One morning, while sitting in her cozy armchair by the window, Margaret overheard a conversation between two young neighbors. They were talking about their struggles with loneliness, the feeling of being lost in a world that was constantly changing. Margaret, who had long since learned to navigate the ebb and flow of life, smiled quietly to herself. She could relate to their words, but she also knew something they didn't yet understand. That life wasn't over just because you found yourself alone. In fact, it was in these moments of solitude that some of the most profound lessons could be learned. That day, Margaret made a decision. She would not allow herself to be consumed by her loneliness. Instead, she would embrace the opportunity to connect with others, to share the wisdom she had accumulated over the years, and to teach others how to live with purpose, no matter their age. The next morning, she baked a loaf of fresh bread, just like her mother used to make. It was simple, but it was filled with love, a love she wanted to share with others. She wrapped the bread in a cloth and set out to visit her neighbors. When she arrived at their door, the young couple was surprised to see her standing there, offering them the loaf of bread. They had never really spoken much to Margaret before. She was just the older lady who lived down the street. But as she handed over the bread, she shared a story from her youth. A story about a time when she had felt lost, when she had been uncertain about her path, but had eventually found her way through the kindness of strangers and the support of her community. You see, she said with a knowing smile, life isn't about waiting for the right moment. It's about making the most of the moment you have right now. And that's something you can do, no matter how old you are. The young couple was struck by Margaret's words. It was as if a light had been turned on in their minds. They realized that despite their struggles, their lives weren't over. There was so much more they could do, so many ways they could still grow and learn. Margaret's story had given them a new perspective on their own lives. It was in that moment that they understood what Margaret had known all along, that age didn't limit what you could achieve. It only deepened your understanding of what truly mattered. Margaret's advice was simple but powerful. She knew that living a fulfilling life, no matter your age, came down to a few key principles. The first of these was consistency. It was easy to fall into the trap of thinking that life should always be exciting, always filled with big moments. But the reality was that the true joy of living came from the small, everyday habits that we repeated. These were the things that kept us grounded, healthy, and happy. Each morning, Margaret would wake up early, before the sun had fully risen. She would take a walk around the garden, feeling the cool morning air on her skin. She would pause to admire the flowers, the birds, and the quiet beauty of the world around her. These moments of peace were the foundation of her day. They were the rituals that kept her mind and body in tune with each other. She would then spend time eating a healthy breakfast, often a bowl of oatmeal with fresh fruit. She knew that what we put into our bodies directly impacted how we felt. Healthy eating wasn't just about looking good. It was about feeling good, about having the energy to live each day to its fullest. After breakfast, Margaret would spend time reading. She had always been an avid reader, and as she grew older, she found that reading not only helped her keep her mind sharp, but also allowed her to continue learning, to explore new ideas and perspectives. Whether it was fiction or nonfiction, Margaret never stopped exploring the world through the pages of a book. But perhaps the most important habit that Margaret practiced was staying connected to others. She knew that loneliness could creep in if she allowed it. So she made an effort to reach out, to visit her neighbors, to share a cup of tea, or to simply sit and talk. She had learned that connection was the key to living a fulfilling life, regardless of how old you were. No one had to go through life alone, especially not in their later years. One of the most significant lessons Margaret had learned in her life was the importance of finding your passion. She had spent years raising children, supporting her family, and taking care of others. But as the years went on, she realized that she needed to find something for herself, something that brought her joy outside of her responsibilities. For Margaret, that passion was painting. She had always loved art, but it was only in her later years that she had the time and space to truly explore it. She took up watercolors and found that the act of painting brought her a sense of peace and fulfillment that she hadn't known before. It allowed her to express herself in ways words never could. Margaret knew that it was never too late to start something new. Whether it was painting, knitting, gardening, or learning a new language, finding something that sparked joy was crucial. Age should never be a barrier to discovering new passions, she believed. It was an opportunity to explore what you loved and to invest in your own happiness. Despite the occasional loneliness and the challenges that came with old age, Margaret lived each day with purpose. She had learned to embrace the present moment, to find beauty in the simplest things, and to appreciate the quiet moments that life often overlooked. There was a quiet strength in her, a resilience that had been forged over years of experience. Margaret knew that the key to living fully was to live in the present, to focus on the things that brought joy and meaning, and to let go of worries about the past or the future. She understood that life was fleeting, but it was also full of opportunities. Each day was a gift, one that should never be taken for granted. And so Margaret lived her life, not just surviving but thriving. She knew that in the quiet of age, there was a hidden strength, a strength that could carry her through whatever came next. And as she continued to live with purpose, she inspired those around her to do the same. Margaret's story is one of hope, resilience, and the power of living with purpose. She showed that no matter your age, you could still make a difference in the world, still find joy in the smallest moments, and still grow in ways that you never thought possible. Aging wasn't something to fear, it was something to embrace, for it brought with it a wealth of experience, wisdom, and love. As Margaret's neighbors began to follow her example, they too started to live with intention. They found ways to connect, to care for their bodies, and to embrace the joy that came with each passing day. Margaret's legacy was one of strength, a reminder that no matter what age you are, you can live a life filled with meaning, purpose, and connection. This is the beauty of aging. It is not a time of decline, but a time of growth, a time to reflect on the past and look forward to the future with hope. No matter how old you are, it's never too late to start living the life you've always dreamed of. The best is yet to come. As you walk through your golden years, embrace each day with the confidence that you are in control of your happiness. Fill your days with purpose, seek out new opportunities, and nurture yourself through the wisdom you've gained. Life's later chapters are not a story of decline, but a celebration of all you have experienced and achieved. Take care of your body, cherish your mind, and let your heart remain open to the beauty of the world. You are never alone. Your strength, wisdom, and experiences are always by your side. You have the power to create the life you want, filled with fulfillment, joy, and endless possibilities. Embrace it fully. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate your support. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and comment. We love hearing your thoughts. And make sure you hit the notification bell so you never miss any of our future content. We got more exciting videos coming your way, so stay tuned. Thanks again for being part of our community.